Hey guys, it's National Master Aaron Cooper here with another game review video. This is a game that I played recently on chess.com, so let's check it out. My opponent was rated 2095, a very strong opponent, and the time control was 10 minutes with the 0-second increment. Now in this position, I've just taken my opponent's bishop with the king, and we have a endgame. You might make an argument for a middle game, but I'm going to call it an endgame. Bishop versus knight, and both sides have same number of pawns, and we both have a queen and a rook. So I don't do anything special to win this game. All I do is I gradually improve my position. And I've been reading a book called The 7 Deadly Chess Sins by Jonathan Rowson. It was published, I believe, in 2000. It's heavily recommended, and I recommend it as well. But anyway, in that book, he talks about plus equals mode. And what that means is, back in the day when games would be annotated, after a move you might see plus/minus, which means that white is winning. Or you might see plus/equals, which means that white is a little bit better. And so plus equal mode means that you're playing a position where you shouldn't lose. You're either playing for a win or a draw. And in those types of situations, as the defender, you know that you're a little bit worse and that you're just trying not to lose and you're trying to hold the draw. And psychologically, that can be difficult to face. You have to sometimes just sit tight, and it's very hard for people to just do that. We tend to want to be active and we want to force the position. And that's what I think happened in this game. So watch how the rest of the game went. So my opponent brought the rook up. I put my bishop on the c4 square where it's secured by a pawn. And now I figured let's just grab the d file. So I've got control of the d file. Still don't have a grandiose plan of how I'm going to win this game. I'm just trying to slowly improve my position. My opponent went back. So you can see my opponent is kind of struggling for some ideas for himself or herself. Centralize the queen. This was a good move. He checks the king. So I move the king back. Shuffles the rook around. Just taking away the d1 square and trying to see what white's going to do here. I've got a nice centralized queen. I've got the d file. I've got the long range minor piece, which sometimes is better than the knight. Queen a5, okay. My opponent is going after the a6 pawn. Good move. So I just defend it. He goes back. And bishop d5. So now I've got a nice little battery going on this diagonal. And here is where my opponent made what I believe is the fatal mistake. Queen there, attacking this pawn, allowing me to wreck the pawn structure. Not really sure why my opponent felt the need to do that. I thought knight d4 made a lot of sense. Hit the queen. I would have just brought the queen back, and you'll notice I've got pressure here. Whoops, that's not the arrow. I've got pressure here on the g2 pawn. So probably f3 makes sense here, just to stunt my bishop. And we still have a game. Still not clear how I'm going to advance here. Maybe just queen b6, pin the knight to the king, try to expand on the queen side perhaps. But still, I've got some work to do here. I still have to improve my position slowly. Maybe I'd grab the C file. at some point too. Still, it's a little more pleasant, I think, to play black here, but still, I don't see a knockout victory. There's no line that I can show you that says, okay, here's the win. Now, mind you, I'm not looking at the computer for my analysis. These are my thoughts. So do take that in mind, folks. I do look at the computer after my games, but typically only after I've analyzed them myself, because I want to think for myself and then use the stronger opponent, that is the computer, to show me ideas that I missed. Okay, so back to the game. So I played bishop d5. My opponent played queen g4. And now I rip the knight because I'm able to damage the structure. I thought they might go in for the rook endgame. And in fact, we do get into a rook endgame. But this is going to be, I mean, I think I'm going to win this pawn unless white wants to have a passive rook, but then I'm able to have counterplay against the e-pawn. I'm picking up some stuff here. However, the adage, all rook endgames are drawn, which is not technically true, but basically that adage just tells us that your drawing chances are high in rook endgames. I think this would have been white's best try. Now that being said, I think we do get into a rook endgame very shortly. So king over, just protect the pawn. Yes, and now my opponent offers the trade of queens. I'm happy. Oh, pardon me, I didn't oblige. Not just yet. Throw the rook down, threatening mate. I'm not concerned about a check. So only once I've got maximum pressure, I've taken the pawn. Check. Unfortunately for my opponent, queen is holding this pawn. So that was a rather useless check. Just go after the f3 pawn, keep increasing the pressure. And now is when I trade. Okay. And I pick up the b2 pawn. So earlier I didn't want to trade because I knew I could keep pressure on white's position, namely the f2 square with my queen and rook. And now I've been able to win the b2 pawn because of that pressure. So when I enter this rook endgame, I've entered it by taking off the b2 pawn, whereas previously the b2 pawn was still on the board. So it's a slightly improved version. Now the rook is just passively placed behind the pawn. Rook b3, I'm going to win one of these guys. And at this point, my opponent resigned. Even if they defend here, I'm taking this pawn. The rook, yeah, you don't want passive defense in rook endgames. I'm probably going to pick off one of these guys. I'm just ahead 3 pawns here. Too many pawns ahead. So there you have it. Hopefully that was useful to you. If you liked the video, give me a like and subscribe to this channel. And stay tuned for more instructional content. Okay, guys. So we'll see you next time. And remember, happy chessing.